Very warm welcome to all the MSc final year biochemistry students. Today we are going to study the topic disorders of carbohydrate metabolism. So in the carbohydrate metabolism, the most common disorder is diabetes mellitus. So in this first lecture we are going to study about diabetes mellitus. So diabetes mellitus is composed of two words. The first word diabetes is a Greek word which means siphon, that refers to excessive urination. The word mellitus is also a Greek word which means like honey. So together they mean that there is an excessive excretion of sweet urine. Similarly, the word insipidus in diabetes insipidus means there is excessive excretion of weak or tasteless urine. So basically the characteristic hallmark of diabetes is the excessive excretion of sweet tasting urine. So diabetes mellitus basically affects the body's ability to produce or respond to insulin, which is an anabolic hormone that allows blood glucose to enter the cells of the body like liver cells, hepatocytes, fat, adipose and muscles, and could be used for energy generation. It results from either defective insulin secretion, defective insulin action, or a combined action of both. The elevated level of blood glucose is referred to as hyperglycemia, which leads to spillage of glucose into the urine, called as glucosuria. The two major complications due to this are the body cells become starved for energy, and high blood glucose can damage organs like eyes, kidneys, heart, nerves and blood vessels. So this is probably due to higher osmolarity of the blood, slower pumping of the blood by the heart and slower nerve impulses. So the major symptoms of diabetes mellitus are, first is the hallmark, which is excessive urination, which is called as polyuria, which leads to excessive thirst, which is called as polydipsia, which also leads to excessive hunger, which is called as polyphagia. So polyuria, polydipsia and polyphagia, these are the hallmark symptoms of diabetes mellitus. The other symptoms include frequent infections, unusual weight loss, irritability, nausea, vomiting, slow healing of wounds and sweet smelling breath. About the biochemical basis about the last symptom, that is sweet smelling breath, I will be telling you in the subsequent slides. So due to the disturbance in the action of insulin, it results into diabetes mellitus. So what are the mechanisms of insulin release? So insulin is basically an anabolic hormone with a molecular weight of 5808 Dalton, which is composed of 51 amino acids made up of two chains, alpha chain which is 21 amino acid and beta chain which is 30 amino acid, and these are linked by two interchain and one intrachain disulfide linkage. It is an anabolic hormone produced by beta cells of the islets of Langerhans in the pancreas in response to hyperglycemia. So what happens is that during hyperglycemia, whenever there is high blood glucose levels, the beta cells are freely permeable to glucose via the GLUT2 transporters, leading to increasing metabolic flux through glycolysis, the citric acid cycle and generation of ATP. Increased ATP concentration inhibits ATP sensitive potassium channels, causing depolarization of beta cell membrane, leading to calcium influx and exocytosis of insulin. So how does this insulin act? This insulin lowers blood glucose immediately by enhancing glucose transport into the adipose tissues and muscles by recruitment of glucose transporter GLUT4 from interior of the cells to the plasma membrane. So there are around 10 to 12 types of glucose transporter, glucose transporter 1 to glucose transporter 12. So they are present in different cell types. So here in this map you can see that in the beta cells, when there is hyperglycemia, the glucose transporter 2 is freely permeable. This leads to increasing metabolic flux, leading to increased generation of ATP. Here you can see, yeah, so there is increased generation of ATP. This inhibits the ATP sensitive potassium channel, causing depolarization of the membrane, due to which there is calcium influx, which leads to the exocytosis of insulin granules from the endoplasmic reticulum or the Golgi bodies. You get my point? So here you can see the glucose flux basically. So whenever there is optimum amount of glucose, this glucose is basically absorbed by the cells to generate energy. But whenever there is excessive glucose, it converts into storage compounds like glycogen by the enzyme glycogen synthase, or it is converted into glucogenic amino acids on the left hand panel. Here you can see like glycine and alanine, lactate, glycerol, or it can be converted into fats like propionate through fatty acid cycle. So also whenever there is deficit of glucose, it is converted back from the storage form like glycogen to glucose through glycogenolysis, or from glucogenic amino acids and other substrates into glucose via gluconeogenesis. So the amount of insulin that is required by a diabetic patient is 1 unit per kg body weight, which comes down to approximately 2.5 mg per day for a person of approximately 60 kg. So there are 3 types of insulin that has been used historically. Long acting insulin, which is also called as CZI or crystallized zinc insulin. It lasts for a longer period of time, that is, it peaks between 18 to 24 hours after it has been injected. Second is short acting insulin or PZI, also called as protamine zinc insulin. It peaks between 2 to 3 hours after injection. The third is intermediate acting insulin, which is also called as LUT or globin insulin. It peaks between 6 to 12 hours after injection. So there is a particular combination which is given like 30-70 insulin, which represents a mixture of long and short acting insulin, and 50-50 insulin. This ratio basically depends upon the condition of the diabetic patient. So what are the sugar levels in the blood? So normal or blood glucose level is generally between 80 to 120 mg per 100 ml or deciliter of blood. It is also called as post-absorptive level or PA level or random level. It can be measured any time within the day, but the diet should have been taken more than 2 hours before the test has been done. Fasting blood glucose level, it is the blood glucose level which is measured whenever the person is not having any diet overnight, and the first sample during the morning is taken and the blood glucose is measured. It comes around 60 to 110 mg per 100 ml or deciliter of blood. The third is after a carbohydrate rich diet. So this is taken generally within 2 hours after the diet has been administered. So 110 to 140 mg per 100 ml blood or deciliter of blood. It is also called as postprandial level or PP level. So the another important term is the renal threshold level of glucose. What is renal threshold level of glucose? So glucose is continuously filtered by the glomeruli and is completely reabsorbed in the renal tubules by active transport. In hyperglycemia, the glomerular filtrate may contain more glucose than it can be reabsorbed, resulting in glucosuria. Thus, glucosuria occurs when the venous blood glucose concentration for glucose exceeds 170 to 180 mg per 100 ml or deciliter of blood, which is referred to as renal threshold for glucose. So whenever the blood glucose concentration exceeds 170 to 180 mg per 100 ml, it leads to spillage of glucose into the urine or glucosuria. So now there are 4 types of diabetes, mainly 4 types. First is insulin dependent diabetes mellitus, which is also called as type 1 or juvenile onset diabetes. The second is non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus or type 2 or adult onset diabetes. The third is gestational diabetes, and the fourth is secondary or experimental diabetes. Now coming down to insulin dependent diabetes mellitus or type 1 or juvenile onset diabetes. So this type 1 diabetes begins early in life during childhood or adolescence and arises from scarcity of pancreatic beta cells, leading to production of little or no insulin. So it is basically an autoimmune disorder. It is due to the defects of the immune system like autoaggressive T cells penetrating the pancreas and digesting the insulin producing beta cells. It is autoimmune disease and 0.3% of the world population is affected by this disease. It accounts for 5 to 10% of all the diabetic cases. It is less common but more severe, and since it occurs in childhood, in the children, it is difficult to control. However, the IDDM patient responds to insulin, hence they have to depend on artificial source of insulin throughout their life. So the children have to be injected with insulin injections every day. So how it is controlled? Patients are advised to have a balanced diet and have daily injections of insulin. So what are the complications? They are more prone to infections, kidney damage, eye damage, nervous system damage, and heart diseases. So the second type of diabetes is non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus, type 2 diabetes or adult onset diabetes. So type 2 diabetes normally occurs in persons over 30 years of age, and it might have a hereditary component, but nothing is established as such now. But it is commonly related to the lifestyle of the patients. For example, overweight, obesity, drugs, excessive alcohol, sedentary lifestyle, etc. Obesity is the major risk factor and is mostly prevalent in Western countries like America, which includes children also. So patients either produce less active insulin or their cells do not respond to insulin produced, hence insulin resistance is developed. There is increased risk of heart diseases, strokes, peripheral vascular diseases due to hardening of arteries. Blood clots easily and blood vessels are narrowed due to buildup of fats in the vessels. There is poor circulation, frequent infections, itchy skin, loss of hairs, higher blood pressure and higher cholesterol levels. So the disease involves multiple gene and multiple gene environment interactions. So this is a hypothesis, and there is some truth to this hypothesis, but nothing like any susceptibility allele has not been established as such. So these symptoms are the same as for diabetes, like excessive thirst, increased urination, fatigue, blurred vision, etc. So in the medication, diet control leading to weight control and exercise. Metformin is one drug which is the first line drug along with other medicines. So this is the schematic representation of the two types of diabetes. Here you can see in the normal cells you have the red dot shows insulins. So you have normal concentration or nominal circulation of insulin in the ECF. So these bind to insulin receptors and they bring the glucose transporter to the surface, and these glucose transporter can easily transport glucose from outside of the cell to the inside of the cell in the normal cells. In type 1 diabetes, here you can see that there is there is scarcity of insulin outside the cell in the ECF, hence the glucose transporters are basically closed. In the third type of diabetes, you can see that that is in the type 2 diabetes, you can see that most of the receptors are modified. Only very few receptors are in the condition to bind to the insulin and activate, and very few amount of glucose is transferred into the cells. So the cells become starved for glucose and hence energy production is very less. So this is basically the schematic representation of the type 1 and type 2 diabetes. So another major complication due to diabetes is ketosis or ketoacidosis. So it is another, so whenever the body cells are starving either due to fasting or in diabetes mellitus, so there is the generation of, the cells require energy, so it goes for other substrates like fat. So gluconeogenesis occurs. So another characteristic metabolic change in diabetes is that there is excessive but incomplete oxidation of fatty acids in the liver. So the excessive beta oxidation of fatty acid leads to generation of excessive acetyl-CoA production by beta oxidation. This cannot be completely oxidized by citric acid cycle and it accumulates. Accumulation of acetyl-CoA leads to overproduction of ketone bodies like acetate and beta hydroxybutyrate, which cannot be used by extrahepatic tissues as fast as they are made by the liver. So here you can see that acetoacetate and D-beta hydroxybutyrate is accumulating. So the blood of diabetes also contains acetone, which results from spontaneous decarboxylation of acetoacetate. Acetone is volatile and is exhaled, and the breath has characteristic odor, sometimes mistaken for ethanol. So the symptom which I was telling, that sweet smelling breath, is because of the generation of acetone by the spontaneous decarboxylation of acetoacetate. Here you can see that there is spontaneous decarboxylation leading to formation of acetone. It is volatile, and then it leads to a false sensation that there is ethanol production or the person has taken ethanol. So the overproduction of ketone bodies is called as ketosis, which results in greatly increased concentration of ketone bodies in blood called ketonemia, and it also is spilled down into the urine called as ketonuria. The ketone bodies are carboxylic acids which ionize, releasing protons, which overwhelm the capacity of the blood bicarbonate buffer systems, thereby lowering blood pH, called acidosis, and in combination with ketosis called as ketoacidosis. The third type of diabetes, which is called as gestational diabetes, this is basically the intolerance of glucose during pregnancy, which is a temporary condition, and it could be managed by diet and exercise and is usually reversed after the delivery of the baby. It occurs in 2 to 10% of all pregnancies. It involves increased risk of developing diabetes in both the mother and child afterwards. So there is a message to all the students that whenever there is a pregnancy during the 3rd and 4th trimester, it is mandatory to have a sugar test, that is random fasting and PP level for at least 2 or 3 times, because if it is not done, then the diabetes complications can occur and there could be a risk during the birth time. So you all should be careful whenever there is a pregnancy. You should all see that whether the doctor is recommending or proposing for sugar tests or not in the 3rd and 4th trimester especially. So the fourth type is diabetes is secondary or experimental diabetes. Secondary diabetes develops due to medical conditions like surgery, such as pancreatectomy, where pancreas is removed. So it leads to conditions like type 1 diabetes, and then there are other causes like injections of alloxan diazoxide, which is sulfonamide derivative, antibiotics like fluorescein administration. So especially during antibiotic administration, one should be careful that the sugar level should not be increased. All these lead to low secretion of insulin. This condition can be overcome by one drug or compound called tolbutamide, which is a sulfonylurea drug. So how does tolbutamide act? Tolbutamide acts by inhibiting ATP sensitive potassium channels, which cause calcium influx and insulin release. So let me tell you about metformin also. Metformin is also called as glucophage or N-dimethyl biguanide. So basically it is the first line of medication for the treatment of type 2 diabetes, particularly in overweight patients. How does it work? It works by decreasing glucose production by activating adenosine monophosphate activated kinase AMPK, which is the central regulator of energy homeostasis by the liver. It also acts by decreasing intestinal absorption of glucose and increasing insulin sensitivity of the tissues. So only this much for the today's lecture. Thank you so much.